All right, today we're going to look at how to turn a video clip of yourself into the clips that you see in the Brooklyn Nine-Nine intro video. So first we're going to import the clip. I'm doing it with just a single clip that was submitted to me. And the clip was called, I'm sorry, I'll find it here in a second. This one here. So a student of mine filmed herself for her Brooklyn Nine-Nine intro, and we're going to take that clip and we're going to make the sequence just off of that, so we'll drag it right into our sequence settings here to get started. Zoom in a little bit. Probably 9 seconds is going to be too long, so we're going to choose the part of this clip where we want that freeze frame to happen. So as I'm looking at it, maybe right when the dog jumps up, that's a pretty good spot right there, and I can have the bars kind of come in this way across the shot. So at that point, I'm going to make a cut, so that's Command K to split this into two pieces, and I'll go ahead and just get rid of the second part because I don't need anything else. I'm going to back it up just one frame here so that the picture comes back in. And what I want to do is I want to export that frame, and I'm going to take that into Photoshop and do some work on it. So to export that frame, there's a button right here that says take a picture or export frame. The shortcut for it is Shift and E. So if I will Shift and E, then it'll bring up the export frame options. I'm going to go ahead and name this TT Freeze. You can use whatever format you want. There's a bunch of different ones in here. I'm going to go ahead and put it in as a JPEG. You don't necessarily want to import this photograph back into your project, so I'll have that unchecked. And then let's go ahead and browse and make sure we stay a little bit organized here so we know where it's going. There's intro clips right there. So when I say OK, Premiere will pull that picture, put it in that folder for me, and let's get over into Photoshop and start playing with it. So as I'll go to my desktop and that intro clips folder. And there's the TT Freeze JPEG image. Looks pretty good, so I'll pull it into Photoshop here. So in Photoshop, what we're going to do is we need to cut out the characters that we want the bars to kind of interact with, and the characters that we want to not have the color change, because the background will change the color in the background for everything. So I'm going to first make a duplicate of this layer because it's always a good idea to do that, and it'll help me have the two pieces. And Photoshop is now, the new versions have made it really simple to cut people out. Even complex ones like this, I have the object selection tool here. With that object selection tool, I'm going to just draw a box around the girl. And Photoshop will kind of sample that area and say, okay, is that what you wanted? And it does, like I said, pretty good. Now it obviously missed parts, and so I'm going to hold the Shift key. If I hold the Shift, you can see how that little plus symbol comes in. I can add to this selection. So I'm going to say Shift, and I'll say, hey, Photoshop, also get her arm, would you? And then I'll hold Shift, and I'll say, hey, can we get this dog? Oop. I was zoomed in a little bit, but even then it still kind of worked. And I missed part of the dog's tail, so I'll hold Shift and say, hey, how about down here? And it'll pick up a little more. Now for this particular effect, we don't have to have a perfect selection, so good enough is good enough. All right, I'm going to get just a little bit more of her hood as well. We used to have to do that totally by hand, and it was a real pain, so you can be happy that you don't have to do that anymore. All right, to get rid of the background here with those ants still selected, I should get the ball as well, shouldn't I? With that layer selected, I'm going to put a mask on it. And that mask will turn my ants into the white part and then black out everything else. The end result will look something like this. Okay? So when I hide that background layer, now I can kind of go in and in the main parts, let's look for some inconsistencies. And right here in the mask tool, on the mask, I'm going to use the brush, which is B. And then black and white are here. I can swap them that way or learn the key X. And parts that are missing, I want to paint with the white brush. So right here where her arm got cut, I'm going to switch my brush to white, and I can paint that back in. I can come into parts that are maybe a little too rough, push X, and I can use the black brush to kind of clean those up. So this was a pretty difficult extraction for Photoshop with all those trees in the background and stuff. depending upon your photograph, you will have an easier or equally hard time. So I'll draw that back in, and I'll use black. So we're just going around and kind of cleaning this up. Again, for this effect, because it's so fast, it really doesn't need to be perfect here. So just get anything that's really glaringly bad. And let's see what's going on with the foot here. I'm just going to paint a big blotch of white. Yeah, his foot was just really blurry, so I'm just using the X key there and switching back and forth. Just checking things out. It'll look just fine because people will be looking at the bars sliding in anyways and the name. That's where their main attention is going to be. So again, this can just be done however detailed you want here, you can go. Some of you will be OCD and want to make it perfect, and that's fine as well. I'll call that good enough for this sample. So I have those 2 layers, and what we want to do here is we're going to duplicate that, or we're going to go ahead and change that background color. So easiest way is to go ahead and do an adjustment layer, and the adjustment layer can be a hue and saturation layer. The sliders itself will change a little bit, but really what I want to do is I want to click this colorize option. So when I do colorize, it makes a big massive change, and then you can drag your sliders around. Let's go with something like, that's kind of nice like that. I like that for her personality. Now after you've done this, you might notice some things, so I'll say that. You might notice some things that weren't bad before that are, so it's kind of worth zooming in and going around again and seeing if anything that remained in color is going to kind of stick out. I think I'm looking pretty good. Okay, for the bars, we're going to use the rectangle tool. Oh, before I go any farther, because we're going to be bringing this back into Premiere, and Premiere handles hue and saturation layers differently, I need to apply this to the background. So I'm going to merge these 2 layers together. So if I click and hold Shift and click the second one, right click, and there's merge layers. The shortcut is Command E. Now that's its own actual layer, and it will be in, it'll translate to Premiere really well. If you don't smash it down, the color change doesn't come over. Okay, so now we're going to put some bars in. Let's go to the upper layer, so they're going to be on top. And I'll take the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw myself, probably don't want black. Let's do, I don't know, something like a green. Okay. And I'll go ahead and drag a bar. You can make the bars the width that looks right for your design. Every bar might need, or every one might have to be a little bit different here. And that, we'll call that probably pretty good for this one. And then I'm going to do a second bar. And for that one, I'm just going to do a duplicate. So I'm going to do Command J, or hold Option and Command. And then I'll just change the color slightly. Let's make it like a, sure. I'm never good at choosing colors. We'll just say that's going to be it. Okay. And those 2 bars there, I might make this bottom one just a scotch bigger than the top one. It's all going to depend on your still, how exactly you want it to look. If you want it to be big or small, is up to you. Okay, now that that is in place, we're going to go ahead and have this kind of play a little bit with our cutout, because right now it's just slamming across the top. And I think what we want it to do is we're going to have it go ahead and go behind the dog and then maybe in front of the girl. Actually, that's for mine. I'm going to switch these around, rotate it the other way, so it's not quite so close to her chin. And I'm going to have it go behind the dog, but then on top of her. So realistically, I want to mask out this area around the dog. Now I could come in on these rectangles and just do it by hand, by putting a mask on, dragging, taking the black tool and just kind of doing it by hand. But a little bit of a faster way is if I can get those ants back that we originally made, and you can do that by command clicking on the mask. If I push command and click, then it'll redraw my ants. And now I can take just a really big brush, and I can brush all I want, because it's going to stay within that defined area. Switch to this layer, put a mask on. Got to kill the ants, Command D, bring the ants back, have a mask, now bring the ants back. Now draw it. Okay. So there it goes behind the dog. So that's will work. And we want these rectangles to be slightly faded out, so I'm going to shift select both of them, and we're going to put them in at a like 88. Okay. I think that looks pretty cool like that, kind of playing in with the dog there. Again, might be worth going in and check. Now you can see I'm getting some really undesirable piece of land here. So I'm going to go back to my brush and paint that black. And then I need to come to the mask of the rectangle and paint it in, paint it white. So you might have a little cleanup to do as you get closer here. This is covering up the dog. Nope, it's not. So again, just check your stuff so that it looks nice and clean for you. Okay, the last and final thing that we're going to go ahead and put in is the text. I'm going to grab the text tool T, and let's go ahead and type. Her name is Tessa. We're going to use white impact font. If you wanted to get really fancy, you could go and find the actual font for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm sure somebody's made a duplicate of it online. And we're going to put that inside of our bar, like so. And then we'll make a second duplicate. And tra-la-la-la. That's not her real name, but I probably don't want to be exposing her on YouTube to the whole world anyways, any more than I already am. So there I have my whole design. It's frozen. We're going to use Premiere to animate it so it slides. So I'm going to save that. We want to save it as a Photoshop file, TT freeze, Photoshop file, save away. Okay. And we'll come to the final stages back in Premiere. We're going to import that Photoshop file that we just made. It's in my intro clip folder. There is TT freeze, the Photoshop version, the PSD version. When you go to import this, here's an important step. By default, Photoshop wants to merge it as a flat layer, because that's usually what we do. But we don't want to import it flat because I still need to animate those bars. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to import it as a sequence. That's the best of options for what we're doing. Make sure that all the layers that you want are selected, which they are. And I'm going to say OK. And now we'll bring it in actually in a bin, in its own little folder here. If I open that up, you'll see each little piece has its import. Each layer is imported itself. And then there's this one here, which is actually a sequence. So the sequence import has them all stacked together, and that's the one we're going to use to animate. So double click here, and then you can close that bin out. So when we look at this, it's 4 seconds long, which is probably about right. We can always, as you're combining, you can adjust the times, but we're going to leave ours. Actually, we're going to take ours down to 4 seconds. So I'm going to select all of them and shrink them down to 4 seconds here. Okay. When we're animating these, we want the two bars to kind of slide in from separate sides, and then we'll play with the text a little bit differently. So to make things animate in Premiere, this is your timeline for setting keyframes and animation. So we're going to select the first bar here, which is the upper bar, and to animate, there's the animation button here, the little stopwatch finger. That is how we can turn animation on. We're going to start at the end because these are already set where we want them to end up. So I'm going to come to the 3 second mark. Actually, this whole thing's going to probably be too long. Let's get 4 seconds is too long. Let's take it down to 3 seconds, and then we'll have it be still for 1 second. So we'll come to 2 on that first rectangle. Stop it. On our rectangle, we're going to be at the 2 second mark, and we're going to set our position keyframe. It's telling Premiere at the 2-second mark. I want it to be right here, which is where I want it because that's where I built it in Photoshop. Now we're going to go backwards to the beginning, add another keyframe in, and now we're going to take that bar off of the screen. So as I pull it, I'll pull it to the left here and up. And we're going to have a little bit of a problem, but I think we're going to get away with it. If I could have done that a different way. Because I put that mask on it, that mask is going to slide in too. That might not look quite right. What I could have done is just made a second copy of the dog up higher. So I guess we'll see how it looks. All right, so that is that layer. The second rectangle, again, I'm going to come to the end, 2-second mark, turn it on, turn it on. Then I am going to come to the beginning. Oh, somehow I moved the... This is the bottom bar. Oh, yeah, I just messed up my first bar. I apologize. Okay, second bar, make sure you double click it so it's the active bar. Oh, that's why I'm confused, because they're stacked differently. Okay, anyways, first bar, set its position, then we'll come and move it to the right all the way and down all the way. And I'll take it just off the screen. All right, so as I look at that, that's how they slide in. And we're gonna go fix those masks in just a minute because that's gonna bug me. So those slide in, that works. We'll do it a little bit easier with the text. The text, I'm just gonna have it like twist or flip in. So I can come to the effects panel under my video transitions, and there's a lot of options of what we can do. We can do like a center slide or a push or whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and have this one slide in. I suppose we probably could have done that with the bars too. I'll have this one push in. I'm not sure what actual Brooklyn Nine-Nine does, but I'm not as worried about it. The upper text I'm going to have come the opposite direction. So we'll have this one here. If I click on the effect, you can see the arrows here allow me to adjust it. So it slides in. Okay, that will work. That looks pretty good. I don't like the words are getting there faster, so I'm going to go ahead and just slide this over so they come a little bit later, and then trim the back edge off. That will work really nice. And that's how you get that bit done. I'm going to save really quick, and let's go back and fix that masking problem, and I'll show you the way we should have done it. If I come back to Photoshop, I'm going to save. We're going to just go ahead and get rid of these masks on our two layers. So we'll save that, and then now the dog, we're going to want to make a duplicate of just the dog. So I'll take the layer where the dog is extracted, push Command J so I get a copy. We'll bring that up so the dog is now up high. Then I'll come to that mask. I don't want the girl, so on the mask with the brush, I will just, I don't know where my brush is not showing up. I will just take a black brush and I can just paint her out. And I don't even have to get her all right, it'll work. The good part about Premiere and Photoshop is when I save this, it'll automatically update it in Premiere. So I don't have to redo much, just that little fix. Except the dog didn't show up. Why is the dog not showing up on top? Dog on top? Oh, the reason it's not copying it over is because that layer wouldn't have imported. So we need to import that dog layer. It fixed the bars because the bars are part of the original file, but it didn't bring the dog in. So let's do quick fix. Command I, TT freeze. There's the version with the dog up. When it goes to import, I'm going to import just an individual layer. I'm going to turn all of them off except for this layer 1 copy, which is the dog layer. Go ahead and import that itself. Go ahead and put it up top here. There we go. Now we've got it. Okay. So once I have my freeze sequence all made, last step is to come back to the intro clip. They're moving, moving, moving. And then I'm going to put the freeze sequence right here. So if I come to the freeze folder, there's the freeze sequence. I just drag the whole sequence down. It nests that whole thing. So everything we have in the TT freeze just got nested inside of here. And the whole thing should look like, I think we want it to start right about here where she's not looking at the camera. The whole thing, when done, will look like da-da-da-da-da. And like I said, I think that's going to be a little bit too long, but as we do our final assemblies, we can take the rate stretch tool, this tool here, rate stretch, and I can just stretch that out and it'll make it go in fast and slow motion. So we can just play with that until we're happy. And if I really wanted, I think what's happening is those aren't coming in fast enough. So I'll come back to my rectangle layers and make them come in faster. And you can play with it until it looks exactly the way that you want it. That's our project.